welcome back to Call the Damn Leads, the show by sales professionals for sales professionals. I'm your host, Drew B. Wilson. With more than 2 decades in sales, I've seen it, been through it, heard about it. Now I'm bringing it to you, my favorite people in the world, the sales community. Because let's be honest, this is the greatest career of all time. Doesn't matter where you come from, what background, what personality type, you can make an amazing life for yourself in sales. Today's guest, no stranger to that journey. Please help me welcome my new friend, Mr. Devin Sizemore. How are you?
Thanks for having me, man. Stoked to be here.
I'm stoked to have you. I was checking out your page, but before we get into the real fun stuff, I want to hear a crazy sales story.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you start with this because we all have them, right? I want to share one that really leans into the art of follow-up, right? I met with this guy. I was referred to him. We had a quick call. He was interested, sent him a proposal, didn't close. So nurture, right? Continue to follow up forever. And finally he calls and says, hey, let's get together. Let's have you come by the office. And he sends me his address. And his address is at this motel in a janky part of town, right? And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go, right? And I told my wife before I left, I may die today, but if I'm back, who knows? And I go and I park in this motel and I'm like going to the front office and I'm like, man, am I in the right place? And she's like, oh, you don't know, his office is across the parking lot. It's this little white building up the stairs. Okay, great. Like, I'm going up the stairs, right? I knock on the door. Sure enough, he opens the door. And he welcomes me in, and it's this nice little renovated. It turns out it used to be the old post office in town, right? And we're sitting in there, and he says, come sit down, and we start chatting. And the only reason I got the meeting, and he said this, was you followed up and weren't trying to sell me anything. You were simply just checking in. He ended up hiring a competitor. And he said, I want to admit to you, I went with someone else. But I also want to admit to you that they're not a fit. Here's their proposal. Here's what they've done for me. It's not right. He says, you came highly recommended. I made a mistake. I chose the wrong vendor. Because of your due diligence and following up, and because you weren't too pushy, I wanted to get you here. I'm using you. I don't care what the price is. Let's go. And so we sat there and developed it. Turns out that this one meeting, which was a referral that said no, that I followed up, that then met at a janky motel, is the wealthiest client I've ever worked with. And he happens to own a bunch of hotels, a bunch of motels, dozens of other businesses, a golf course, restaurants, glass door company, land. The joke is every time I meet him, I find out he owns something else. And dozens of meetings in, I still think that's a true statement. So there's a lot of crazy stuff in there, and it's turned into this amazing friendship, business relationship. But it all happened because I followed up with someone who said no.
You know, man, there's a lot of pieces to that story we can really dive into, but I think the number one thing that I love most from it is never assume. Just because you see someone from the outside, you know, you can't, we're all guilty of it, right? It's a fight or flight mechanism. Like, we look at people, we judge them. We're always kind of like, what's going on here? What's the next thing? But in sales especially, you gotta be careful about that kind of stuff, man, because you just never know by looking at someone, or even just in a surface level conversation, what they truly have going on. And I love the long-term follow-up situation, because I'm guessing that this is a gentleman who genuinely cares about relationships, and when he gets into one, he does not do so lightly. Is that pretty fair to say?
Yeah, 100%. And let me jump in real quick, because you said one thing that's really important to me. In my book, I talk about 5 principles. 2 of the principles are there's value in every relationship and never make an assumption about a connection. And I hold myself accountable to that all day, every day, right? Taking meetings with everyone, getting to know everyone, remaining curious, not judging. And that really did unlock this opportunity and dozens more. Like, there's dozens more stories like that with, you know, the old guy in the cargo shorts and a t-shirt who has paint all over him, who comes in when I had my web agency and went, yeah, I want to do a website for this. And, oh, by the way, I own this other company and this other company. And it was like 6 website package. And he's like, and I'll pay up front because I just need it done. Here's my team. And like, this guy, like, literally, and I'm like, man, I got to ask, like, why do you have paint and stuff all over? He's like, oh yeah, I just bought another rental and we were just in there fixing it today, but this was important.
It's bro, I love those kinds of stories. And if you've been in sales for any length of time, you've had the experience where you prejudge someone and then you put your foot in your mouth because you're like, yeah, I
For
was a
sure.
total jerk about this. I don't even, and that's why I love the stories that I get to hear on this show, because anyone who does sales knows that these things happen. We make mistakes. We fumble around. We learn from it if we're trying hard enough. And so what I'd love to know from you, Devin, as what prompted you to even get into sales? How did you get into this whole world to begin with?
Yeah, I guess that's such a good question. I've actually never had that question. I've probably been selling something since I could walk. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm a hustler. I spent all my summers at my grandpa's gun store and watched him, do discovery and align people and go through the process. And so I think like innately it was just like forming in the subconscious. But I launched my own marketing agency, which was my first, like, I guess, big real business right out of college. And I didn't have a choice, man. Like I had to go drive revenue. And so when you start with no funding and I had, 1 month of revenue in the bank to live on, like, well, I guess you're going to figure it out. And from there, I realized like, damn, I'm actually good at building relationships, getting people to close, getting them across the finish line, to the point where I was so good, I almost broke the company because we outgrew our ability to deliver. So I got into it because I had to, and I'm addicted to it, man. I love business. I love generating revenue. I love aligning people with things they need. Yeah, it's so fun.
You know what I love hearing from you, Devin, is that, sales to you is very much a service-based process. It's all about helping. It's all about creating those connections. And I was kind of checking out your book before the show. And what I think is so cool about that process is that when you genuinely make connections, especially from a sales perspective, like I don't want to sell everybody that has a credit card and a pulse, because as you just said, it's so easy to outsell your service end, and nothing will destroy a business faster than selling a bunch of people and not delivering. So I love that idea of genuine connections. What made you decide to write the book and become like really the expert on that process?
Yeah. So yes, we got to do connections. I want to share a quote. This quote is something that we've got to talk about. Everybody wants to buy, nobody wants to be sold. I tell every sales professional I work with, you got to put the damn Post-it on your monitor that says that. Stop selling, right? Just let people buy. You're not going to force them to sell. Yes, we can use all the ninja tactics and all the stuff. But if we align really well, what happens is they just pull the card out and go, hey, Devin, like, how do I start, right? So just a little note there. If we look at me launching my marketing agency way back when, I was in the SEO space, digital marketing space, right when that was super hot and really blowing up, crowded marketplace, hyper competitive, and I had to find a way to be different. And so we did all the other strategies, funnel development, blah, blah, blah. We did it all. And I had a mentor who was like, man, you got to speak. So I did, got on stages, started generating small group intimate settings and doing that, which was awesome. But what I realized is there was a way to shift from marketing to one client to marketing to many, right? So that gets you into the referral partner world. Then I realized that there's actually more to that. There are ways that I can find myself in front of rooms of referral partners that now, instead of a one to many, right, which is me to a referral partner, I am the authority in a room full of referral partners, educating them and empowering them. And then they become advocates for me. And all of a sudden I ended up with these like raving fan advocates because I ended up doing work for them. But then they all started shoving me to all of these people they work with. And I started to find that there was no competition. I was the preferred vendor. I was the preferred partner because I had built a real relationship with this very specific type of person that none of my competitors were targeting because they were just chasing clients. They weren't chasing the rooms and places that had access to a lot of referral partners. They might chase one referral partner, but I was the one at the referral partner conference where they're like, dude, Devin's the man. And then even if they had another partner, they'd look at me on the stage and be like, well, I guess I got to know that guy. So that system works. It's worked in a corporate position I had. It's worked in the handful of companies I've owned, and it's worked with the 600 businesses I've worked with. And so now the book, it was me taking that whole system and sharing it with the world. I want to empower people to be able to implement this system. It has everything. The case studies, the exact scripts we use, how to follow up, how to follow through. It's all in there. I didn't hold anything back. And it's a decade of development that now, again, I'm sharing with the world.
I love people who put that much passion into projects. I've written a couple of books myself, and it's so fun when you can literally sit down and be like, I'm going to take a decade of failures and experience, and I'm going to boil it all down into a step-by-step process that literally, if someone just picks it up and they do the work and they trust the process, they will start to see results. And again, we know results may vary because everyone's effort is a little bit different, and no one can make any real guarantees in life except for death and taxes. Different conversation for a different day. But when you write a book, there's such an amazing feeling that your message will far outlive you and all the things that you've done in the world. And so do you have any more books planned?
Yeah, so I wrote, it's interesting, right? And I work in that world too. So I wear two hats. One is working with people to write and publish books. And so, yeah, I wrote a whole nother book, didn't publish it because it wasn't aligned with what I wanted to grow today. And it's slowly becoming needed. Like I'm getting people who are circling back saying, hey, teach me about this. Matter of fact, I have a strategy session next about the topic of that book. And so, yes, there'll be a book coming. It'll be super packed. It won't be about network building. It'll be about working yourself out of a job. And actually owning a business that's a business. And so there'll be a lot of tools and strategies there, including talking about the cat cafe we owned and some really fun stuff. So yeah, it'll be a very geeky, nerdy, technical book.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I like. So I'm sure it'll be cool to check out, which it brings me to my next point though. Alignment is important with sales because I've met so many professionals over the year that like, they sell something that they don't really love or they don't use or they're not passionate about. And you can find success in that. I'm not saying that you can't make a lot of money or find your version of success with that, but it makes it really hard. There's a lot of burnout. It's just not fun. And you go from having like a business to having a job because you're constantly like just stuck in that mindset and that frame. So for you, how do you make sure you stay aligned, with your passion and your sales process?
Yeah. So for me, anything and everything I'm selling has to align with having a positive impact on a person or a business, period. Has to. And so that's just a core fundamental. Like if it's not going to positively impact someone, I'm not interested. That doesn't mean I won't empower and work with a sales professional that wants to build and develop their own process for a product I maybe not believe in, but maybe they do. But for me, like I want real results. I want really sticky relationships. I want clients forever. I have relationships and consulting clients I've worked with for a decade. And like, that's the level of client I want. And so for me, I want to experience the project and the product and the service. And so it's the same with $1 Million Author, right? Who I'm partnered with on the book side. I was a referral partner, got great feedback. I then worked inside the company and watched 64 authors do amazing things. I then became a client and experienced it. So now it's easy for me to advocate for it because I've seen the company inside out, left and right. I've seen when they struggle and how they react. I've seen client case studies again and again and again. So it's so easy for me to be very real about it. Like I don't have to make stuff up. I can just tell you, like, let me tell you about this author. Let me give you real case studies, real stuff. So I love partnering and aligning with people where I truly believe in what they're trying to accomplish. And then it's easy because I just want to share their superpower with the world, right? And let them impact more people.
I think that's super interesting because the connection side of business is, let me back up for a second. When I look at business, entrepreneurship, anything in that realm, you have sales, you have marketing, you have networking, then you have the mindset kind of on the back end that ties it all together, which can get a little woo-woo sometimes, but we all know that there's a reason we got to have that thing tying it all together. But from the networking aspect, I truly believe that this is an art form that is going by the wayside. I think sales professionals are losing their ability to create genuine, authentic connections because they're trying to hide behind AI. They're trying to just hide behind using all of these different tools that aren't actually them getting their voice and their authenticity out. What's your take on this with the world that we're in right now?
Yeah, there's never been a better opportunity to be a good networker. There are so many strategies out there for cold leads, cold calls, cold outreach, cold whatever. And what's so interesting is there's two problems, right? One is I call it the referral dilemma, which we talk about in the book, where you want more word of mouth, more referrals. It's the easiest clients to close, right? That's a true statement. We all agree. But you don't have a system for it. Okay, well, that's a mistake. And then there's this idea that like all these lead gen funnels are what you need to be doing, which yes, there are reasons why those work. Maybe you get on setter calls or closer calls and your rates go up and you're working through it. But you're missing this opportunity to tap into other things. I would bet every single person listening to this has some sort of network, current existing network, whether it's 5 people that you think actually know, like, and trust you, or hundreds if you've been in this profession for a while. I can guarantee there is revenue potential in your current network that you're ignoring because you're so focused on prospects, you're missing all the rest of the conversations. And so this system flips all that backwards, right? And my whole approach to sales is backwards. I don't care about referrals. I care about connections. I want you to introduce me to people who you think are badass, because if I meet them in a great strategic, well-aligned meeting that I control and I add value, I get back in control. I can then mine that relationship for future opportunity and additional introductions and additional connections. So why don't we just go back to our current network, right? And just nurture it and get back into some meetings with curiosity and interest and stop selling and just take good notes. And then let's add value through some connections. Let's have a follow-up process that works. And let's take that network you already have and reignite it and get it producing to the point where January, right, as we're recording this, we've got a month going. I have personally sent out over 100 connections. I just pulled the sheet up. 36 inbound connections this month. That's 36 new people to my world that I didn't know at the beginning of the month. I don't know about any of your listeners, but what would 36 high caliber, again, connections, these aren't all prospects. What would 36 high-powered, edified, and aligned connections do for you in your sales pipeline? Yeah, I know the answer.
Yeah, and as do I, and that's what I love about these kinds of conversations, because it always opens you up to a different perspective on how to create success. One of my mentors early on, he gave me this quote. He said, methods are many, principles are few. Methods may vary, but principles never do. Anyone that's ever made $1 million will tell you there's a million ways to make $1 million, but there are a few things that we have to do on a consistent basis in order to achieve that. Creating those connections is one of them. And I will tell clients till I'm blue in the face, there's probably 6 to 7 figures worth of revenue in the client database that you already have that you're not genuinely asking for the right way, which is why it's still sitting there dormant. People aren't asking for referrals. They're not creating a true process for nurturing those relationships, because you can't just go and show up and say, hey, man, tell me somebody that you know that wants to buy my shit. Like, that's not going to work. I hate to say it. Well, I take that back. It does sometimes work, but you have to know your avatar. You got to know who you're speaking to before you can come in with that sort of brash abrasiveness. But if you're doing a good job connecting, you're asking questions, you're listening, you're building real relationships based on value, not just on the value you can extract from that person, it's pretty incredible to see what opportunities start popping up and just how often the things that you've been looking for, that you've been praying for, they're right there in front of you, and you just have been overlooking them, trying to see something that's further out in the distance. What do you think?
100%. Yeah, 100%. It's fun when I do recaps with clients or even look at the activity I'm doing myself, right? Because it's a lot of meetings, it's a lot of activity, but so what, right? That's what clients always want to hear. So what? So you want me to take a bunch of meetings? Great. But what's it generating? Well, this month alone, it's opened up 2.5% podcasts that they're booked out forever, but somehow I ended up on. It's opened up 2 private events that don't have sponsorship opportunities that we're now co-creating sponsorship opportunities because there's perfect alignment. These are opportunities that don't exist, but they exist because the connection was so highly edified that they're like, if they say we got to play, we got to play. And so now we're unlocking things that didn't exist. We're finding ourselves in rooms and networking and masterminds and places where we're it. There's no competition, yet there's 150 captive people in the room that we now can mine. And now we get into all the best practices, right? How do you sell at trade shows? How do we quick convert? How do we capture data? Yeah, we got to do all that. We got to be great salespeople. I just want to be a great salesperson where there's more opportunity.
Devin, listen, man, I bet we could sit here and nerd out on sales and follow up and connections probably until the end of time, because there's always something to like break down and pull apart. What I want to do, I know I'm going to check out your book and I want to follow more of what you have going on, because I think we're very much in alignment as far as our process and how we go about things. So what's the best way for me and the rest of the listeners to come and find you?
Yeah, so definitely grab a copy of the book, Connection Expansion, Devin Sizemore, Devin Sizemore, Amazon, paperback, hardcover, ebook, and audiobook. So pick your preference. You have an option. You can connect with me on every social platform at DP Sizemore. And then my website is just devinsizemore.com. Tons of information, resources, value, training, webinars, all the stuff we've talked about and a lot more. Go check it out. And per what I always say, I'll connect with anyone. So raise your hand, say hi, and let's hop on a call.
I love that. Thank you so much for a bit of your time today, man. I'm truly honored that you were to share a little bit with us. Before we leave, though, I always like to ask this question, because sales is one of those industries where there's always someone new coming in, always someone going out. But for the folks that are coming in, let's say we just get super lucky, Devin, and they go to Google and they're like, how do I sell more stuff? And they happen upon this episode and they're like, these guys are blowing my mind. If you can give that person one piece of advice on how to be successful in the sales industry, just one specific nugget, what would it be?
Control what you can control. So often you get on the emotional roller coaster of sales because you're focused on things you can't control, like people buying. You actually can't control that. What you can control is how you show up, how you follow up, how many meetings you book, how you follow up from those meetings. You can control all the stuff inside of your pipeline that, again, you can control. So analyze your sales process and make sure you're benchmarking your success on metrics you actually can control. Then you need to crank those metrics up to generate the outcome. But if you're only focused on the outcome, you are going to get emotionally wrecked, right? You're going to have days where you think you're the best person on the planet, and you're going to have days where you're debating whether you're about to be homeless. So stop it and get back to controlling what you can control, reanalyze your process, and make sure if you're part of a team that what you're being held accountable to is stuff you can actually control, because that'll create horrific expectations between you and your sales leader, and vice versa. If you're a sales leader, make sure what you're holding your team accountable to are things they can control. If not, realign, reset, and get out there and tackle that stuff aggressively, as long as it's stuff you can control.
That is fantastic advice. That is something that I mentioned earlier. The mindset side of this is one of those key pieces that people forget about, because it's the mindset to be able to have that forethought of controlling what you can control and really leaning in on it. So Devin, thank you again for the time today. Those of you that are listening, if you like the show, make sure you go follow Devin, check his stuff out, grab his book, do all of those things, and then send this episode to someone you know, someone that you think could benefit from this, could learn how to create better connections, wants to know how they could get 36 inbound opportunities just by being a good person. Share it, tell them about it, leave us a review, do all the things. And then if you have an awesome story like my man Devin, where you've done something crazy and it's turned out awesome, I want you on the show. Head over to callthedamnleads.com/podcast. Send us your info. Let's bring you on. Let's share your story, because again, this is the greatest industry on the planet. There's amazing people like Devin out there willing to share and help you grow, and your story could be the next one. So head over to the show, callthedamnleads.com/podcast. We'll look forward to seeing you. You guys know what to do from here. Go call the damn leads.